Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter.
And welcome to Breaking Bollocks episode 26. No, 27.
27. Yeah.
Because
I knew.
Well, because I planned it before as 26, but we did movies part 2, so that's my
excuses.
Anyway, the fun topic today happens to be death.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, before we start, can I just put for the first time ever, put a disclaimer out, in case, because there's a potential for this to possibly trigger if you're going through anything difficult at the moment.
Isn't a nice thing, generally.
If you're grieving, or if you have any issues with any of the subjects around death, feel free to get in touch, but if you're likely to be triggered by it, maybe skip this one, or at the very least be aware that there is help out there.
It's just like, that's just being a nice human being, I guess, just saying, hey, you might not like this.
On the other hand, there could be some really disrespectful aspects as well.
Yeah,
we'll try to keep some humour in it.
I'm gonna piss on the dead, not literally.
I wonder if that would, if it was a skeleton, do you think because urine's quite acidic, isn't it? Do you think they would, disintegrate?
No. Well, over a very long time, but your urine probably would have evaporated by then, I think.
That's true, yeah.
Not a very long time, but, over being soaked in that for a day or two.
Mm.
So you'd have to,
confused skeletons around.
You'd have to get, a bath of urine and then put the skeleton there.
There's a lot of confused skeletons around because they've spent their time on this earth, they've then pissed off, and then they're pissed on.
So I'm just thinking of how to get rid of my body. Not my body, the body that I keep in the closet.
Would you like to look at the notes I've been making?
Are you my therapist?
No, on
okay,
on how
dead
to get
body.
Rid of your body.
Not my body. Again, well, the body that I own, but isn't
what?
Isn't like me. I'm making a joke that I have a dead body.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to make a joke, but that kind of didn't work very well. Can we cut this whole bit out? We can't, can we?
Well, you can edit it. Anyway,
podcast death.
We've got something in front of us right now, which is a bunch of statistics about the world population and a bunch of
let's
other
not have a
stuff
spoiler,
as well.
But at the end of the episode, we will announce how many people have
died
during this episode.
Were you trying to get me to complete your sentence? That's how shit our relationship is.
Yeah.
We finish each other's
sandwiches.
For God's sake. You just meant to have silence then to just make the joke. Fuck's sake.
This is going well.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, do you have anything particular? Because I'd like to kick off with a jolly thought. If you don't have anything in particular to...
Go ahead.
I've been thinking about some of the things that we can talk about in this episode, and one of the things that came to my mind was it's highly likely, and don't take this the wrong way, but I hope it will be you, but one of us is going to have to attend the funeral of the other one at some point in the future.
Yeah. I've had some really weird dreams about death recently. I don't know, for some reason, my brain just goes, fuck you, just be sad, just wake up sort of crying and just It's just everyone's just dead now. It's always fun.
What is death? We need to define death, don't we? I mean, obviously it means different things to different people, but what are we going to treat death as?
Now, this is a question posed on the Infinite Monkey Cage. Our strawberry's dead.
The strawberry, yes.
Our strawberry's dead. What's your opinion on this?
Oh, come on. This goes on. This spans whole series.
This spans, I think, the whole thing.
For the Infinite Monkey Cage. Are strawberries dead?
Yeah.
Well, see, this ties into what I was thinking, because obviously there's a definition of death, the point of death, in terms of what we define as the time of death with a human being, and it's to do with brain death, isn't it?
Yeah.
When there is, but that, because I've read recently that there has been activity registered in the brain still after death, or in the body still after death, I'm not sure which, but there is a suggestion that you can still experience things after the point of that you've been declared dead.
I think I saw a thing the other day that one of the presidents was declared dead as a child and then woke up in their funeral.
That doesn't mean it's true, though. This is the world of fake news.
I think it might have been Herbert Hoover. Not sure. There was also, I think it might have been the same one that ended up being raised by.
Just as soon as you said that, I just thought of those little, the Henrys and the Charlies, the little vacuum cleaners.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's a great song by the Horn Section about Henry Hoover.
Death is going to be it's a different thing, isn't it? Human death. What is, in terms of human existence, what would you classify as death? Were you dead before you were born?
No. I don't know. That's a metaphysical question, don't
because how can you say someone's dead if they've never existed? It's like there's in that case there's an infinite number of dead people at the moment.
Yeah, yes. Well, not infinite if the universe it isn't. Well, yeah,
potentially.
Yeah.
So you got to. I suppose for sanity's sake, we ought to treat it as the point at which life departs from something. So humans, that would possibly be looking at brain death, yeah. But then plants and animals are alive as well. And I suppose animals, the definition would be a lot closer to that of a human. But at what point, like you say with the strawberry thing, at what point is a plant or a...
It's no longer able to... No, because then old people would be dead if they can't reproduce.
Because the other thing is there's...
no longer able to carry out respiration. I think all organisms carry out respiration.
You do get well into the metaphysical aspect of it, because if you're thinking about a strawberry, you've got to say, well, are we talking about when there is no longer any active biological activity within that strawberry? But then, if you apply that to a human being, that's not going to happen until a long time after we'd classify that person as dead, because there's so many organisms in the human body that will still be alive for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And do the maggots that come along and eat all the flesh away, do they get counted? Or, because none of the flesh and skin and matter that makes up my body at the moment is the same as it was 10 years ago. So, is that person now dead?
That's the ship of Theseus question. Are you aware what this is?
No.
One of the old Greek dudes put this to someone. I don't know. Wrote it down. Maybe they might not have had writing. It might have just been spoke by word of mouth about a ship that over several decades, every single part of it is replaced.
Right.
Is it still the same ship?
Yeah. Because, this problem comes up when you're talking about something we've spoken about in the past. Our potential for a solution to the problem of immortality, seems to be possible if you're thinking in terms of AI, not AI. Transferring your consciousness into something else. But
that still doesn't
be the same person.
Immortality.
It's a pattern of energy, isn't it? It's kind of who are you? We're talking about the id. what that ego, what's...
I guess it is the brain.
And then you get into...
Your consciousness.
Right. So, I'd just like to mention a commonly misattributed quote. But I do like the quote, which is at the beginning of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. There's a quote attributed to Edgar Allan Poe, which says something along the lines of, sleep, those little slices of death, how I loathe them. And I only found out trying to look it up today where it came from, that it's not actually, probably more than likely not Edgar Allan Poe. Nobody really knows exactly where it comes from, but there is something else that's a lot closer to that. But anyway, yeah. So when you're unconscious, are you dead? If your consciousness is your death, is your life, is you.
Yes, because we start with dreams and there's still activity there and that's still you.
So no, we're not dead then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about if you're in a coma? Is there brain activity in a coma? Or is that just below a certain level?
I think so. It just means that the rest of your body, other than basic, I don't know, do you breathe during a coma?
So we're talking about electrical activity within the brain.
The oxygen mass to help you do that.
So we're talking about electrical activity within the brain then, is a human being. I'm going to get to the end of this episode and find out that I don't actually exist.
For animals, but plants don't have brains.
Right, okay, so are plants dead?
No.
So what is the life in a plant? How does energy flow within a plant? How does
I guess that would be a good assessment, whether you're still taking in energy.
Right. Okay, so
But then a corpse, I guess, does take in some sort of energy.
Right. I feel like we could get mired in some serious philosophical
I feel like this was a bad thing to start off with.
What, this aspect of it?
Yeah.
Shall we move on to another part of the subject and then maybe come back to whether or not death actually exists?
Well, I think there's a point where it's a bit pointless to go into it in such a depth because it just becomes a haze of philosophical rantings.
Yeah, to make sense and to actually stand a chance of putting a podcast together, we've got to frame it within our understanding of language.
Yeah.
And concepts.
There's also a lot of ways to talk about how we view death in society, and I guess what society does count as dead rather than just philosophers counting as dead.
I have to say that I've only...
Or more, perhaps, alive, because in front of us we've got the counter, which is how we're going to ascertain how many deaths have happened during this podcast. We've got a bunch of counters about the world population, deaths today, as well as tweets today.
There's a lot of other interesting stuff on there. If you want to have a look, it's worldometers.info. I'll put the link in the description as usual.
You might have heard of it. I've vaguely...
Just as an aside, it's worrying me that they estimate there's only 44 years worth of oil left at current consumption rates.
There's more overweight people than undernourished people in the world. I don't know if that's a good thing.
Are there more people dying from being overweight than being undernourished? People who died of hunger today. Overweight people, undernourished people. Money spent on weight. Anyway, that's kind of disappearing up our own asses there. There was something else I was just about to say, and I've forgotten what it was. Oh, fuck.
I'm going to talk about abortion, because that's always a fun one.
Can you remind me about... just say cat to me later on, and it'll remind me of the bit that I want to... Right. Abortion.
I feel like with that, the main argument comes into whether the whether it's alive, whether it's the fetus, the baby, whatever.
It falls into so many of the categories or so many other things that we talk about that have grey areas, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does come back to religion as well, because that's fucking Bollocks.
Yeah.
I think it's a fairly consistent cut-off point to say when it's been pushed out the vagina.
Well, that's definitely alive, yeah.
It's a baby.
When you cut the cord, that's definitely...
But there is an argument to be made that at that moment, the baby's not really sentient.
There is also the point that it can be considered to be dead even while it's still in the womb. I don't mean, I mean, a baby can die before it's born.
Yeah, but do you consider that death?
Well, this is maybe where we need to explore what we're talking about when we talk about death, because
it is the fetus is alive. It's just the argument, I guess, comes more into sentient.
I feel like this comes to the heart of what I was saying about remind me of Cat later on. The thing I was going to bring up, and I think this relates to something that's really important with our understanding and discussion of death.
Schrodinger's cat.
No. It's nothing as profound as that. I've seen death. I've seen roadkill. I've actually killed a deer. I've probably run over a cat or a rabbit, probably quite a few rabbits, and felt a bit sad. But there were 2 times that I've seen death in my life that had more of a profound impact on me. And there's something in common with those 2 times. Once was a cat that I had for a while, and it was ill. And then when I woke up in the morning, I went in, and it had obviously died quite a few hours before in the night because it was stiff. It was cold and lifeless. And it was weird. It was a really weird thing. And the other time was my granddad.
Have you ever been to an open casket funeral?
No, but I have seen, as I say, this is my granddad. He died in the night in hospital, and we had an opportunity to go and say our last goodbyes, pay our respects, whatever. And I went in and did the pointless thing of kissing him on the forehead like my brother and my mum did. And it was nice to get a last sort of goodbye, but at the same time, it was the same thing. That feeling of, this is not that person. And like with the cat, this wasn't. But it was nothing to do with, because I've run over deer, I've hit a deer, I've seen roadkill and not felt the same profound impact of experiencing, seeing a corpse.
Know that deer.
So yeah, the point about it is that in those 2 instances, I developed an emotional attachment to that life form.
Yeah.
So I suppose death in those cases was more about how their lack of existence in my linear timeline from that point onwards affected me. Because obviously they're not experiencing anything anymore. They don't. Death is a part of life. It's once you're dead, you're not experiencing it because you're not there. Death is really about the people that are left behind.
Should we briefly discuss the afterlife?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay, so if you haven't listened to any of the episode before this, you may notice that we're not the most religious folk. We're quite none. Would I be correct in saying you don't believe in an afterlife?
It depends what you mean by an afterlife. Yeah, I don't believe that in the form I'm in at the moment, I will continue to exist in any way, shape, or any realm. But in the way that I would think of after life, if you like. I mean, this is where it comes down to what is life. Life, we are the matter and energy that makes up the collection of what we are physically, and the energy that's flowing through us, if you like. All of that's still going to exist. But at the same time, all of the energy and matter that's made up my life so far still exists, but it's not part of me anymore. It's out there somewhere now.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So what I have been is still there. It will be after I die. Even into the sort of eventual heat death of the universe, it'll still be there, but it won't be in its...
And it's unlikely that there's... I mean, I guess they would potentially reform into other sentient beings.
So is identity, is the id, the ego, the consciousness that we talk about as ourselves, is that an abstract concept?
Probably.
So it's the removal of the abstract from our existence, then we become literal.
We're just matter, then.
Well, we'll still be energy, but we'll be diffused, won't we? We'll be...
Yeah. Well...
How much
matter
energy,
is...
wonder how much energy a human being
has energy.
Takes in and gives out during their life. Obviously it varies, but...
I don't know. Probably more than they give out.
I did hear somebody saying once that a person in a room gives off about the same heat as a 1 kilowatt bar fire. But I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I suppose if you count just heating, then that's a lot of energy given off. Anyway, we're getting more into that again, which is...
You want to get back to abortion?
I want to get back to something that's within the realm of something that has some action that can be taken on it.
Meaning?
Yeah.
Okay.
There isn't just us going, what am I? Am I dead? Am I alive? I'll decide later. Yeah, so with that, pretty good cut-off point, because you can argue all day long about where exactly that becomes sentient after birth and before birth.
Yeah.
Because that's another grey area, but it's very definite when it comes out.
Yeah, I think the Catholics take it a bit too far back, don't they? I mean, like, you can talk about the moment of conception.
They're like, you should be ashamed for wanking because you just killed a bunch of people. And we're coming back to circle genocide from our anniversary special.
Every sperm is sacred. I cannot never forget the look on your face when we first watched that film.
I just remembering Yorkshire, the third world, or the other way around.
Ah, dear.
But then, if you take it that far, then every person is born of mass murder, because 99% of sperm, I think, end up as defending sperm for the ones that actually are vaguely capable of making it.
So
and 99% of those don't make it to the egg anyway.
It's a vaginal battleground.
I guess.
Messy.
Okay. It's going weird places. But after the moment of conception, is that clump of cells human? I can't really say.
It's starting to divide and grow, isn't it? So,
I mean, it has the DNA there, but
then, yeah, at what point do you draw a line? And I suppose the law in different countries draws a line in different places. So,
yeah, like there's laws about when you can actually have an abortion, because having late abortions might be slightly, well, I think it's a health risk,
and the circumstances as well, isn't it? Like
that risk of it being sentient.
If there's some kind of health defect in the unborn child, can you not abort later? I'm not sure about that one. We should maybe look that one up. But yeah, because that's when it becomes an ethical thing as well. It's like, if my kid's going to be born with, say, Down syndrome, should I have the?
Weirdly, that makes me more uncomfortable than just abortion on its own.
Well, it's eugenics, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's probably why, because it feels like.
But then, what if it's a condition that's going to be, going to cause intense suffering for the child?
It depends what you mean with that. But some conditions, yeah, but something like Down syndrome, like, I know people with Down syndrome that are perfectly happy, so...
Yeah. I used to know somebody who had a child that, I think the child was about 6 when I knew them, and they'd had their house, like, fully adapted. The kid was in a wheelchair and basically in a vegetative state all the time. But they loved it so much. Their daughter, they loved her so much. And you just think, it's like, I don't know. Life's hard.
Yeah.
For some people.
What a shitty place sometimes. All the time.
Yeah. But, we're going to die, so you might as well enjoy it while you're here, eh?
Yeah. That's my philosophy, I guess. Optimistic nihilism. Which is, well, everything's meaningless, but you give it your own meaning.
What do you think about, you're saying about afterlife, what about reincarnation?
Very loosely, like you said, with your matter becoming something else, or your energy becoming something else, doesn't necessarily mean that's even going to be alive.
See, the thing is, in an infinite universe, it would be compulsory. You would exist again, because in an infinite universe, the energy and matter that has made you up your entire life would have to, at some point in the future infinity,
are you talking about infinite
together again?
Space or infinite in time?
Well, space and time are the same thing, aren't they?
No, they're not.
I thought space-time was a thing.
That's... No.
I thought it was.
They're different dimensions.
I thought they were the same.
They're not the same thing.
I thought they were, but I'm wrong, obviously. You're the physicist.
Well, they've formed the universe, but like time goes in one direction.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another conversation for another day. But I don't think the universe is infinite in time. It's like,
but
it's
if you think of the length and the width of something, they're different dimensions.
Yeah.
But they're the same thing, just pointing in a different direction.
Yes, but time's a different kind of dimension. There's 3 spatial dimensions and 1 temporal dimension.
Right, okay.
In our universe. But, I guess if there's such a thing as the Big Bounce theory, then that...
Yeah.
But it's...
Do you think if the Big Bounce theory is correct, do you think we're on the return journey at the moment? Or
What?
Do you think we're going backwards just now? Or forwards? Well, it's a concertina thing, isn't it? The universe is continually expanding and contracting, and like space-time, like...
Well, when it contracts, that's when it goes into that hot, dense state for the Big Bang to happen.
Yeah.
The universe is still expanding, but then so we're going forward.
So time's contracting as well as space at that point, when it's coming back into itself.
No. Because that's one direction. It's like a line.
Star Trek must have lied to me.
It's potentially possible.
No, Star Trek's always right.
Well, in that, time travel is possible, but it's very unlikely. Anyway, that's nothing. Well, it's kind of to do with the heat death of the universe, but
death.
I want to talk about things that there's actually action that can be taken on. You just keep going off on tangents, going. Ooh, everything.
Another thing that came to me when I was thinking about this episode was that death is something which is always there. Like, in a metaphorical sense, death is behind you, like, stalking you your whole life. This is very Final Destination. But the longer you're alive, the nearer it comes. And I'd like to reference an awesome Dream Theater song, Pull Me Under. And one of the lines in that is, every day brings me one step closer to death. Or every step
closer to my death.
Yeah, fantastic band song. Anyway, yeah, like every breath, every word, every second of this podcast is one less second before we both die.
Yeah, but I'm enjoying it, so fuck it. It's it's not that likely that I'm gonna die, like, too soon.
What are your thoughts about obviously this is not really within the realm of the subject of death in terms of whether or not it will be possible. But what if, fucking listen to me.
No.
What if you could be immortal? What if you could eradicate death? Would you choose to if you had the choice? Because there's a lot of people answer this particular way.
Only if I could learn the ability to just come out of existence for a couple of billion years at a time.
A couple of billion?
Well, when the universe is dead, I just don't want to be sitting there in a prison of not non-existence, but just existence. I don't want to just
when the universe is dead?
Well, when there's no more life around, when everything's exploded, there's only black holes around, and even after that point, the black holes will dissipate. I don't want, because there's billions of years after that, billions and billions of years after that, me just going...
But you're a part of the universe. If that's happened, you're not immortal. You'd be dead with it.
Yeah, but if I'm the only thing left, because that's inevitable.
Yeah, I think you're thinking maybe too far ahead. For in terms of what I'm asking, anyway. Okay, if you could stay alive for as long as human beings are alive, the human race exists. If you could be
right,
if you could prevent your own death.
Well, that comes to something that's going on now, is the fight to cure aging.
Yeah,
it's the single biggest killer.
Well, there are organisms that are technically immortal, aren't they?
Not technically. Just that they don't age.
They don't age, yeah.
Immortal doesn't mean that you don't.
Oh, okay, stop being fucking... Yeah.
No, that's an important thing, because you can still get shot if you don't age.
Yes, I know, but...
No, it's important.
Yeah, okay, it's important.
You can still get other diseases, and you can still die, and you're more likely to if you're living that long.
Yeah, okay.
It's just not determined by...
You just don't age.
A counter up to 100 or...
Well, see, that strikes me, because like, if immortality is something that we suss out, it would make murder so much bigger a deal than it already is.
Yeah.
Or would it?
Yeah.
Because we tend to... would it? Because we tend to think of, like, if somebody murders a child, we tend to think of it as being a lot worse than if they murder an old person, because they've already had their life. It's like, what... I suppose it's in how much life is left, that part though, isn't it? It's really what you're taking away from someone rather than how much they've already had.
Yeah. But also with that it's not just aging that kills people with aging. But what I mean, like, you're much more likely to get other diseases when you're older.
Mm.
And if you stop aging, let's say you just decide, well, 20 is a pretty good time for most people health-wise.
I think we need death. Personally, I think we, as a species, we need the death of this kind of... Because it strikes me that a lot of the problems that come about from like things like suicide bombers and that kind of thing, you know, anything that kind of relates to the afterlife, if you like. If you believe in an afterlife, then you don't believe in death, not true death. See, this is one of the things... the thing about the energy and the matter carrying on.
But eliminating aging, again, is not eliminating death.
No, I've moved on now.
Okay. But okay, sure.
Well, all right, I've moved back to what we were talking about before with the afterlife thing.
Okay.
In that, if you don't believe in death, then you've got less to lose from dying. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you're a terrorist or a suicide bomber specifically, you don't think you're going to die. You think you're going to be rewarded in eternity for what you're doing.
Yeah, but there's plenty of people that believe in an afterlife but don't see it as a thing where they live for the next life necessarily.
Maybe not, but in essence,
to a certain extent,
should.
like if they pray, then that's kind of.
I mean, one of the things that in the Christian faith is that you, you know, in the afterlife, you stay yourself in the afterlife, and you meet up with people that have been alive, you know, other people that are dead. Like I would, like if I believed in it, I in my afterlife I would meet my granddad again, and he would still be him, and I'd still be me. Whereas I'm more of an opinion that everything just becomes one with the universe again, and it's like you don't retain your human identity, you know.
Whoa, everything's just wibbly and one with the universe.
What's the wibbly shit?
I don't know. It's just saying that, like, it's just so vague that it's pointless.
I don't see why it's pointless. You would like to discuss death within the frame of reference of our lives, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so... Okay, I want to show you a video.
Oh, that makes a change.
Which is a fable about a dragon. It's a metaphor.
Okay.
It's by C.G.P. Gray. There we go. The Fable of the Dragon Tyrant.
Once upon a time, a dragon tyrannized the kingdom.
What do you think of that? Do you think that it's a bad idea to try and stop aging?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. However, I'm sure it probably brings up lots of practical issues in terms of population. I mean, I wonder whether or not there's a particularly advantageous point at which to combat the aging process for a species. I mean, we're working on a manned or a human mission to Mars, aren't we?
But looking at these figures here
on the Worldometer website,
that would be. I mean, there'd still be a number of deaths. Maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Say double the population growth rate.
I mean, there must be a way of kind of figuring it out, but I mean, like, see, aging is it's a complex thing, isn't it? Because there are a lot of conditions which cause death that only come about because of aging. Because of the body's inability to fight things off. So I suppose a lot of the deaths that come about from other conditions would be eradicated at the same time. And at what point would you, because aging has to carry on to a certain point, what age do you...
I guess that comes down to personal choice.
And what if it's a one-time thing and you change your mind? It's like we will have to watch a film called Logan's Run sometime.
I think generally for humans, mid-20s would probably be a fairly good. I think most people would probably want to do it at like 21 because that's meant to be the prime of your life.
It depends.
Well, mental growth would still happen.
Yeah.
It's just you wouldn't go through something sometimes known, at least by college humour, as second puberty.
Yeah, I could handle being physically 21 for the rest of
faster metabolism, that's another thing that would cause less deaths.
Especially if I had the mental... the difference in my kind of experience that I have now. But you got to think to yourself, like, if I had the body of a 21-year-old now, knowing what I know from the 26 years difference.
But that would create a slightly bizarre dynamic where it's like, you have no idea how old somebody is.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be relevant anymore, would it?
I guess based on experience, it would be.
Yeah.
But everyone would look young, so apart from people that choose not to go through that, they might be religious people or just people in more impoverished
slightly different subject, but also connected. I mean,
because it might be a very expensive thing. It could cost millions, so it could be just like all the millionaires stay young whilst everyone else dies.
Well, actually, this one's not necessarily that daft to think about, but because I was thinking about, I was going to ask you if you believed that time travel would ever become possible. But regardless of that, it's the same ethical question can arise from the prospect of cryogenic freezing, which I know some people have already done. That they, I mean, it's a metaphysical thing. Like, sort of say, if somebody's been cryogenically frozen for 100 years and then is revived and their condition cured,
it's unlikely that they're going to be alive when they come out of their current form of cryogenics.
Yeah,
as far as I know.
But I mean, putting aside all the practical points of it, if you like 100 years, I mean, imagine being put to sleep for 100 years and then waking up and meeting your own descendants, and they look the same age as you. Yeah, can you imagine that? Like, I mean, you're 15 now. In 6 years' time, imagine if I looked 21, you would continue to age now until you looked the same age as me.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, it would be a very different world, wouldn't it? Very different.
Yeah. But I would like to live in that world, I think.
Yeah, I can't say it would be... I mean, it's difficult to separate the difference between 21-year-olds physically and 21-year-olds mentally. Because, I mean, they're not the same anyway. You know, some people at 21 are very responsible people. Other people are still pretty much children at that age.
It's not necessarily about responsibility, even.
No, but I'm thinking in terms of
a very different
experience
outlook could be taken on life if you'd been around for 80 years.
Yeah. Well, I do know from experience that the fact that I'm 47 and that much closer to death, whenever that might be, does colour the way that you live.
What about retirement in that situation? Would you have to work till you die?
Well, I mean, I've never really been that interested in the legal requirements for retirement because I've never been in I've never intended to stay in a standard kind of occupation, if you like. I don't intend to retire ever from what I do because I wouldn't. But having said that, if I did something. Like if I worked in a shop or I was a train driver or I did a practical job, I probably would want to retire.
Right.
But you don't tend to. I suppose performing musicians can retire.
Yeah.
But you never give up doing that completely. I wonder what John Deacon's doing now. He's retired from the music world.
John Deacon,
bass player with Queen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, I wonder if he ever actually plays still, because you could say he's retired. And Elton John is supposedly going out on his last tour before he retires. But I can't imagine when you do something that you love doing. I can't imagine stopping it.
Don't want to be going out and doing it on stage, which is understandable.
Yeah, there are physical restraints to. I mean, for instance, your granddad's was a helicopter pilot, and obviously you have to retire from something like that because you will age.
Yeah.
So without the aging, I suppose you could carry on doing that non-stop, couldn't you? You could do any job you could do non-stop.
So pensions would kind of become a thing of the past, I suppose.
Which would solve a few problems.
Yeah, because you could spend that on general welfare instead.
Yeah.
That's...
And eradicating a lot more problems, not just aging, but other things.
Spend expenditure on that.
So maybe eradicating aging should be a priority because
it would
potentially free up. But you can guarantee that whatever treatment was involved would be damned expensive to start with, and it would be only accessible to the rich as a result.
Which would, before it became a more commercially viable thing.
And then there'd be all the ethical backlash.
The
moral.
The clash between the immortals and poorer people.
Do you think there would be some kind of ethical war in terms of, like, say scientists managed to develop an anti-aging treatment?
It's not likely to be like a one serum sort of thing. It would be basically genetic engineering.
Now, what if extremist religious groups believed that was wrong? Because, like you say, there are other ways of dying.
They're going to die out in 100 years anyway, so...
Yeah, but in the meantime, they're probably going to want to take a lot of other people with them.
Yeah,
you would imagine. Because it's like...
Like, you can say that about doing anything. You shouldn't let people scare you because they don't believe that you should do something.
No.
Like, there's gonna just be, well, millions of more people will live to see a bright future.
Wonder what impact it would have on what you might think of as adrenaline sports. Not adrenaline sports, but that kind of, people get a thrill from the risk factor involved in certain things.
Yeah, because I wonder
if people would be more careful because they'd have a lot more to lose.
Maybe some of the I'm not sure if it's post hoc justification or actually how they feel, sort of like the live in the moment thing, because this is the only life you've got and I've got to live now. And
I'm thinking specifically about the sky swing that we went on.
That's not an adrenaline junkie thing. Well, it's adrenaline, yeah, but it's not going to kill you.
If it broke, it would. I mean, there's always risk involved.
Yeah, but there's always risk in crossing the street.
Yeah.
You don't get a buzz off of that.
All right, yeah, but okay, for any activity,
there's more risk in crossing
the street. Do you think it would cause people to be generally more careful?
I don't know. It might cause people to be less careful. I don't know.
I suppose there's always going to be different levels of intelligence, isn't there? Some people will think they're invincible just because they don't age anymore.
Yeah.
And other people will probably become recluse because they realise that
their existence is constantly under threat.
Yeah.
Whereas before, those people might have had the reassurance that, well, they're going to die anyway. So,
2 films that I would recommend to anyone relating to death. I mentioned Logan's Run. There's another one called Soylent Green, which is a classic sci-fi film. But there's both of them deal with future societies, if you like, who have like I suppose it's a population control thing. They have a standard age at which you die. And I think in Logan's Run, you go into, I think it's called the carousel or something. There's like a mechanism thing.
In that society, would that become a thing? Where it's like, well, you've been around for 200 years.
I think in Logan's Run, I think it's 30. Everyone lives to the age of 30, and then they have to go to the.
But like, I mean, in this society where aging stopped, to control population, would they have a exact cut-off point?
Maybe it would be, I mean, in a capitalist society, maybe it would be related to how many credits you've got. This makes me think of that Black Mirror episode, actually.
Everything does.
Yeah.
Anything terrifying does.
Anyway, Soylent Green, they have a centre where you go to die, basically, and they put you can choose, you're peacefully put to sleep, basically. And you can choose an experience, like a special piece of music, a last meal and everything, like a...
Yeah.
I'm not going to give away the end of the film. But, yeah, Soylent Green. It's very dated now. I don't know if they made a remake, actually.
Let's talk about euthanasia.
Can we not talk about youth in Africa and youth in Europe and...
No, because those aren't things.
Youth in America.
Those aren't things.
Youth in Australia.
They're not things.
Youth in Antarctica.
They're not words. Those are not words.
Okay, then euthanasia.
If you don't know what that is otherwise known as assisted dying.
And not like cartoon
which
anime.
In some countries is legal in the case of terminal illnesses.
Switzerland, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any other. Let's have a fun search result thing where people think that I don't know, where we search where is euthanasia legal.
The more we talk about stuff, the more I realise that I choose not to form opinions on lots of different subjects.
Euthanasia is legal in the Netherlands, Belgium, Colombia, Luxembourg, and Canada. Assisted suicide is legal in Switzerland, Germany, and the Netherlands.
And a few US states as well.
What's the difference?
So what's active human euthanasia and...
Yeah.
I suppose, I don't know, maybe it's a practical thing, like active human euthanasia would be putting someone else to death, whereas assisted suicide would be providing them the means to end their own life. Which, I mean, I know it's not legal here, but essentially they do that.
Passive euthanasia is legal here.
Right.
Not sure what that means.
Well, I don't know, but I do know people with terminal cancer in the very painful final stages are often given a self-administering morphine drip.
Right. In the United Kingdom, active euthanasia is illegal. Any person found to be assisting suicide is breaking the law and can be convicted of assisting suicide or attempting to do so. The Director of Public Prosecutions has issued guidelines setting out blah 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 blah. Lord Joff. Passive euthanasia is legal by way of advanced decisions giving patients the right to refuse life-saving treatment. That's.
But you see, this is another one of those grey area things where it says here about the causing death through the administration of lethal drugs to a patient if the intention is solely to alleviate pain is not considered murder, even if death is a potential or even a likely outcome. So if you're giving somebody a self-administering morphine drip knowing that they're going to be administering more and more of it to themselves the more pain they're in, and eventually the dose will become lethal, then, you know, it's a very grey area. Legally, I personally have no problem with that at all. You know, cancer's a painful way to die from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Again, I'll repeat the...
It also says in the UK,
disclaimer.
Food and liquid can be withdrawn from someone in a permanent vegetative state.
Because there's probably going to be people listening that have been touched by cancer at some point in their lives. I have a form of cancer. Hopefully it'll never kill me because it's a fairly...
if you're watching on video, there's a scar on the orbiter's forehead where a tumour was removed. Kind of.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. Was it malignant melanoma? What was it? Rodent?
You're reminding me of a Tim Minchin song now.
What's that?
Grew on me. It's a love song. You grew on me like malignant melanoma. No,
but I also have a form of blood cancer called mycosis fungoides, which will hopefully stay benign for my whole life.
Hopefully.
But I mean, it's like when you look at the statistics for people, I mean, I was told when I was diagnosed with that only 10% of cases develop into like transfer to other internal organs. So to me, that's less of a percentage than the general overall population. I mean, obviously, it's in addition to this, but generally 1 in 3 people are going to get cancer anyway. I don't know if it's probably more than that now. Maybe look that one up.
There's an interesting line on euthanasia in Switzerland. Assisting suicide is a crime if the motive is selfish.
Was this Switzerland?
Yeah. If it's selfish. If your motive is selfish. If it's to alleviate them, then it's not a crime.
So what if somebody is, like, say for instance, if I became so severely disabled or handicapped that I was a huge burden to the people around me and I wanted to commit suicide to alleviate their burden, would that be considered, if they helped me, would they be considered to be doing it for selfish motives? If it was my decision, because I wanted to help them out.
I guess it would be more if you saw someone in a suicidal state that you wanted to kill for some reason.
Mind you, I suppose
so you pushed them over the edge.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
helped
in
them
that situation, you're unlikely to be the one that administers the whatever it is anyway. You'd take somebody to a doctor who, for that person, for the doctor, if they helped, then it wouldn't be selfish for them because they're not going to get anything out of it other than money.
That might be where it comes in. If you're doing it personally, then that's a little uncertain whether the consent is there.
Yeah. Anyway, do we have any more to cover on this subject, or are we nearing the point at which we take a tally of how many people have died while we've been talking?
There was something else I think I saw on here. Oh yeah, the fact that there's more overweight people and almost more obese people in the world than undernourished people in the world.
Yeah, that's you sort of. It would be good if the obese and overweight people would just share half their food, wouldn't it? Really, or even a third of their food.
Yeah, and then that comes back to like wealth inequality.
Yeah.
How do they count this? Like, do they just have a general rate, or do they go, you're fat now?
No, I did have a look at that. There's a. I think it might be at the bottom somewhere. There is a how they calculate it.
If you expand it, I think it tells you.
Yeah, it's not. All of the counters on this site aren't accurate to the digit, but they are based on very thoroughly researched statistics that they're fairly accurate estimations.
Like, this many people become overweight.
Pardon me.
A year, sort of thing. An awful lot
Bloody
of
hell.
years. What?
Over $500 million spent for obesity-related diseases in the USA today.
Yeah. Keep in mind that they are spending more on that than you would in the UK because they don't.
Mind you, I wonder if that includes the hire of mobility scooters because there's fuckloads of those going around Disney.
Yeah, I did notice that in America. And you sort of feel a bit sorry for them, but then at the same time, you feel there's some fault of their own there, even if that's maybe not the most fair to them, but
yeah,
you're not sure in all circumstances.
Death. That's a lot of money spent on illegal drugs this year. None of it was mine. Nearly $21 billion.
Yeah.
Big market. Getting on the tax, people.
I don't know if there'd be as much money in it then. Because if you're the only...
Well, come on, have you seen what the pharmaceutical companies charge for drugs?
I guess, yeah.
And besides, governments could put whatever taxes they want on them.
Yeah, put it at like 90%.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of do with cigarettes, don't they? I don't know what the percentage is then. It's got to be somewhere near that. I mean, it's over 10 quid a packet now. You know, it was like... I think when I started smoking when I was a teenager, it was like about £1.70 something a packet.
Tax on cigarettes is made of a specific duty of £196.
Yeah. Some of the lowest price cigarettes tax can account for 90%.
But that's 16.5% of the recommended retail price. What does Valorum rate mean?
What?
Ad Valorum rate.
I don't know. Ad valorem. I don't know.
80% tax, over 80% tax.
So VAT is charged in addition. So presumably the VAT on tobacco is more then.
Which, do you think, and this is slightly getting away from Death, I suppose, but...
Actually, there was a brand of cigarettes called Death.
That just seems cruelly ironic.
No, it was kind of... Look it up, Death cigarettes. I don't know, they're probably still around. It was just like an attempt to be, not ironic, just kind of honest. Yeah, in a black packet with a skull and crossbones on them. Blow yourself away.
Wow. Anything else to add to Death?
I'm going to do a tally. So...
Do you want to talk about
All right, I'm not going to do a tally.
any of the more personal sides of death that... I mean, you've talked about your granddad briefly and your cat.
Yeah, I mean, there's different aspects. I was thinking about, obviously the person that my granddad was, in some ways you could say is still alive in my head because there's a memory. But that's not him. That's like his avatar in my universe, if you like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if what we witness as a universe from where we are contains everyone who's alive in it, then we don't actually know. We don't actually ever experience anyone
another
else.
thing. How many people would you meet if you were, well, not immortal, but you didn't age?
I just had an awesome thought. That whole thing about transferring consciousness into a virtual environment. Say if that was possible. Imagine, at the moment, sex is the merging of two physical beings. Imagine if you could merge your mental kind of data with somebody else's mind.
Women have a number of eggs in their ovaries when they're born.
Do they? I didn't know that.
So there's a point where they'll run out.
Mm.
I think at that point, menopause happens.
Right.
But in the male, sperm is constantly being produced.
Mm.
You could have 100 kids, maybe, if you wanted to. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to have to remember all their names.
You could have 100 kids now. You could have 1,000 kids if you wanted to. Genghis Khan had many. How many kids did they reckon? A large percentage of the world's population is descended from Genghis Khan.
Yeah, but that's to do with just exponentialism.
Yeah. So you're talking about in a monogamous relationship then?
I mean as direct descendants, like as your child.
Yeah.
And not in a necessarily monogamous relationship.
No, but he would have had a lot of first generation offspring.
A lot.
Like potentially hundreds, maybe thousands.
But like if you were to try and do that in one lifetime, you'd have to be doing a lot of rape, which he did.
But I mean, even just doing it once a night, you could have 365 kids a year.
And a number of those would die.
Yeah.
But like you couldn't do that.
Who couldn't?
Like I think you would be exhausted. And
it didn't take long.
You would have to find 365 women.
Yeah, but if you're Genghis Khan, that would be fairly easy.
But you're not Genghis Khan.
Right. What was the point of the question? What did you ask? Did you ask a question?
Well, if you didn't age,
yeah,
then you don't have to do that in one lifetime.
Oh shit! No, that's weird because your sister could literally be 200 years older than you, or 1,000 years older than you.
Yeah.
But you still both look 21.
There could be more of a gap between you and your siblings than there are between you and your parents. I mean, that's technically possible now, but it's much more likely in that situation.
So now that would get really complicated because you could get to a situation where you're...
Oh, what's your name again? I can't remember. We're just going to call you Joe.
Your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather could be younger than your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson.
In terms of physical aging, yeah.
But they both still look 21.
Yeah. But also just think, like, if you lived for 1,000 years, like, you'd have been born before like anyone other than monks could read.
Yeah. Yeah.
As compared to today, where we have magic slabs of computeriness and electricity that you can swipe and make them do.
It would take getting
crazy stuff.
It would take getting to our level of technology to get to the point where people could the aging process could be eradicated. So we're talking about looking 1,000 years ahead. But if you look at the difference between the world 1,000 years ago and the way it is now, and the fact that it's accelerating in progression, and the fact that it would accelerate even faster because people would be alive long enough to do so much more.
Yeah, like a great mind, a great person. Like if Einstein didn't age, then think how much he could have accomplished in 1,000 years.
And although we know, like according to all current or most current theories, that there will eventually be a heat death of the universe, it's a fuck of a long time before that happens. And if the human race can actually survive the next few hundred years, there's a damn good chance that we'll reach a point where we do transcend our physical limitations and become beings of energy in Star Trek.
That'd be a bit boring, though.
I think we're disappearing up our own arseholes, which does make me want to die.
Mean?
I don't know, but you've heard it as well. I didn't make it up, did I?
I've only heard it from you.
I think it's when you become so sort of, I don't know, you kind of overanalyze things so much that you just kind of,
It's envisioning.
Don't envisage it. I've never envisaged it.
What?
Oh, I thought you were going to say you were envisaging disappearing up your own arsehole.
And I don't want to even think about that, to be honest.
I can't imagine what's going to be like in 100 years, let alone 1,000 years. When you look back 100 years, like you said, I mean, we mentioned when we were talking about Shawshank Redemption, the guy in that who came out after a life sentence and he'd only seen like 1 or 2 cars before and they were everywhere. You know, I mean, like 100 years ago would have been, you know, when my granddad was a
Would
kid.
life sentences become longer? Would they be infinite?
They'd have to develop all sorts of new treatments because rehabilitation would surely become a priority because you can't justify a life sentence for a potentially immortal being or the death sentence because, you know, it's just ethically it just doesn't work. So we would have to work. We would have to develop, but all of that would.
I mean, some people would argue unless in the case of murder, because that would be having an effect on another potentially immortal being.
I just realised
forever.
I was thinking about death in the Terry Pratchett books, which made me think of death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which made me realise that one of our listeners looks like death out of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Hi, Pete. Before I'm added to this total, I'm gonna count out how many deaths there's been since we started our podcast.
I genuinely can't say anything about that because I've forgotten what he looks like.
Okay. Right, I'm doing a bit of maths now. So 216,000.
Wow.
People. That's now this brings up something that you see when this is another thing I thought of was when someone dies, it's not just about that person's life coming to an end. It's a whole network of people whose lives are changed by that.
Yeah. Because even if it's not someone that close to you, it affects you a lot still.
Let's kill the podcast.
I don't know. I was about to just say die.
I think we should just end it there.
I think I've been Firebolt.
No, I think we should just end it there.
No.
Let's kill the podcast.
No.
Oh, you're such a tyrant.
I think I have been Firebolt.
You're a dragon tyrant, aren't you?
No.
You're death, aren't you?
I mean...
I am death. I have become the destroyer of worlds.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I've been the Orbiter.
Die.
No, for fuck's sake.
Goodbye. I think all those overweight people need to go on a diet. I'm not advocating genocide, I just thought of a pun.